And what that is, they're weekly homeschool help sessions. We are Schiller Learning is part of the nonprofit Rising Stars Foundation. And so, as an extension of the homeschool help that we've been offering on Tuesdays at 2, we are launching our first annual Back to Homeschool Blast online conference, completely free registration, as you all know because you are here, but we will be sharing the replay. If you are watching the replay, if you have any questions, just pop those into the comments. If you're on the live session, just pop those into the chat. But we are going to spend the next 7 weeks helping you get a great start to your homeschool year. Now, if you are brand new to homeschooling and wondering if it's something that you want to do, I hope that this session is going to be helpful for you. Amanda, we can do that in the replay actually. So I'm sorry, never mind. I was going to ask you to pop a link in there.
Oh, I can. What link do you need?
Oh, I was just thinking of the sign up for the conference, but the folks who are watching it live, they have already done that. So that's just something we'll pop into the replay. Okay. So is homeschooling for you? I'm just going to stop that. And there we go. We are side by side, so that is working. Okay, so is homeschooling for you? Now, this is somewhat related to, but is different than some homeschool humor that you may see going around from time to time about you may be a homeschooler if, or you may be a homeschool mom if. The kids always get a kick out of those. And I have homeschooled my 5 kids from the very beginning. And Amanda, did you homeschool from the very beginning?
Yeah, I started when Neelan was going into kindergarten. Well, I guess we kind of did pre-K loosely.
And Amanda, how many kids do you have?
I have 7. My oldest is 11 and a half, and I have one that is 11 months old. So whole mixture of ages.
Definitely a busy homeschool mom. I remember the days, I have to say very fondly, of when the kids were younger. My youngest is now 12, almost 13 years old, and my oldest is just about to be 25. So, and I have to say the homeschool years they build wonderful connections, and it's a great experience. And we're going to talk about 5 signs that homeschooling might be for you. But before we do that, let's talk about, explore that little bit of the funnier side of the stereotype of homeschooling, some of which is a little bit true. So you might be a homeschool mom if, Amanda?
One of them would be if you've ever had any one of the following items on your dining room table: frog dissection, an owl pellet, acid devouring something, anything growing mold. That happens in my refrigerator also, so I guess you can count that one too. A collection of books and a diorama of an ancient civilization that you have set out for days on end. A vast collection of math manipulatives. Those are scattered all over my house, it seems like. We find our unit cubes everywhere.
Yes, if you have had any of those on your dining room table, you might be a homeschool mom, and I am with you there with things growing mold and acid devouring things. It was funny. We did an experiment just a few months ago, and it involved acid and electricity. And I was very glad. At first, I thought we had done something wrong because the alligator clips, which were carrying the current, were dissolving in the acid. And then I realized, oh no, okay, this is what is supposed to be happening with that. And this is all taking place on our dining room table. Owl pellets, that has absolutely been one of my family's favorite things. So homeschooling will take you into areas that you may not have thought you would end up exploring. What's that second one?
Let's see, you might be a homeschool mom if you own any of the following: an ink tank printer, or I'm going to say laser printer, a laminator, a binding machine, a paper cutter, a microscope, or a large passenger van. I own all but the binding machine. That's the only thing on the list that I don't have currently.
I was just going to ask, and how big is your is your van?
We have a 12 passenger.
Oh, you do have a 12 passenger. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so I have all of those except for the big van. We just had our largest was your standard minivan.
Number 7 got me up to the large passenger van. We officially filled every seat in the Suburban and had to upgrade when the 7th was born. So let's see, the next thing on the list: you might be a homeschool mom if when you put on jeans or any other non-stretchy pants and makeup and your kids ask you where you're going. I get that every single time I try and put on real pants in my house. Or if your kids spot you in anything other than comfy clothes at a messy bun. Or let's not forget, if put on clothes day is more notable, or a more notable occasion than a pajama day, then you're probably a homeschool mom. So yes, I'm trying to get ready this morning. My kids are like, are we going somewhere? What are you doing?
Even my kids who are in their 20s will still look at me and say, oh, where are you going? So definitely some truth to that stereotype, as well as the next one. This is a huge stereotype about homeschooling.
Yes, you might be a homeschool mom if you've ever had a conversation about socialization with a random stranger, bank teller, or cashier. You see it coming. They're sizing up your kids, assessing ages, and then ask, no school today? Then next comes the socialization question. You will have to decide, are you going to be polite, informative, funny, or snarky? And I just dealt with this question over the weekend, and it wasn't a complete stranger. So yes, I get this all the time.
It was a question over the weekend, not even on a school day.
Not even on a school day. Our pastor and youth director stopped by the house and
Okay.
brought up socialization. And I think he could tell by the look on my face, that's not the question you ask a homeschool mom.
That is really funny. And I do, for a long time, I would opt for the informative answer to that question, feeling like I was being that ambassador for homeschooling over the years, because I have been homeschooling, oh gosh, for over 20 years now. My answer to that question has definitely gotten shorter. I realize the question generally arises from a very good place, a genuine interest and curiosity for most people, and they just don't know about homeschooling. Some people ask the question in a snarky way. It is tempting to give that snarky answer, but for the sake of other homeschoolers out there, we do urge you to skip the snarky answer and go with either polite, informative, or funny. Socialization, by the way, is the least thing that most homeschoolers need to be concerned about, because we as humans are social creatures. Kids love being social. That's not the thing that's going to be a challenge to make sure your kids fit in on a regular basis. You might find that getting them to do all of their academic goals, that's going to take a little more organization and effort. And this next one is along the lines of socialization also, and is something I got constantly.
You've ever been asked how your kids will survive without prom, and the oldest is 5.
Yeah, people start asking that question very early on. And there are homeschool dances and all of those same opportunities for milestones that kids in either, a private or public school would have. Your kids are going to have opportunities to those as well. They may not select to participate in them, but they will have that option. Um, Amanda, do yours participate in like local dances or anything along those lines?
We haven't yet. Most of them are middle school and above, and we're just now getting into that age range. So we have
Right.
not, don't know that we will start soon because Neelan just could care less
Yeah.
about dances.
Yeah, and ours tended to do that once they hit high school age. A couple of them dabbled in the middle school years, but it really was the high school years.
For the younger ones around here, they have either daddy daughter or mother son, and the girls love that. They love to go to the dance with their dad. Neelan, I tried it one time with him, and it was so funny. At the mother son dance, they had balloons, and all the little kids ran around just hitting each other with balloons the whole time. None of the
Oh,
boys wanted to dance
that's
with their
great.
moms. We
Oh,
gave that up.
that's a nice, that sounds like a really nice event, though. I don't know that I've seen any of those in our area for the younger kids. I'll have to keep my eye out for that.
Those are very popular around here. Neelan would prefer to do just something more just with mom. He's not a big dance kind of kid.
Now, this next one, I think this one is pretty ubiquitous across the country.
You take breaks from the public library to avoid fines. If you've ever considered going to the library in disguise because of your fines, or you've gotten a library card for your kids just so that you can check out more books, you may be a homeschool mom.
So library finds. Libraries are awesome resources for homeschoolers. Just watch those due dates, especially when you're working on a big project and you're taking out all sorts of resources. You're diving deep into those. The kids each have a card. My experience was the kids love picking out library books. They had a tendency to pick out more than they would be able to read in that period, for which they would have to then return them. Amanda, have you helped to fund your public library?
Yes, and our public library lets you have your own card once you're 5, and they let you check out 6 books at a time. Now, I did set a
Oh,
limit. I was like, wow, kids, 20 books is about all mom's willing to carry at home at one time. So we don't need that
so
many
that's,
library cards.
yeah, I don't think that ours had a limit. Like the kids could literally check out a stack of books like that, like each one of them. And boy, when you have that stack that big, they do add up. But the public library for classes, for books, for most libraries now have where you can check out a pass to a local museum. So your local library is going to be an awesome resource for you as a homeschooler. And then that is going to bring us to the next thing that might tell you you're a homeschool mom.
If you've ever canceled an outing because you realized that the public schools were on break that day, or if you've ever pulled into a parking lot only to drive right back out because the place was packed with public school kids on break, you're probably a homeschooling mom. And no, that doesn't mean you have anything against the public school kids. It just means that you prefer to visit when you can actually see, hear, and move about freely. So because it's not as crowded. We actually made this mistake over spring break last year going to the zoo. And I don't think I had ever been to our zoo when it was that crowded. It was just shoulder to shoulder and could barely see anything.
Very true. And one of my favorite homeschool memes is it's Glenda the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz, and she's got her wand out and she's saying, homeschoolers, it's public schools are going back. They start back in a couple of weeks. It's almost time to return to all of your favorite places, simply because as a homeschooler, you get to go when it's not the peak season. We've had different memberships for art museums, science museums, arboretums, all kinds of different places. And I can tell you, like for spring break or going during over Christmas break, summertime, all of those peak visitor times, it's a different experience. And as a homeschooler, you get to go during off peak when you're going to be able to get attention and assistance from the staff in a way that you just aren't able to those other times of year. There are also most of those same places have uh, homeschool programming, which tends to be a discounted rate to get in. And not only are you getting access to the facility, but you're getting additional programming, resources, personnel on top of that. So those are all wonderful resources for you. Now, those are some funny stereotypes, but there is a good bit of truth in all of those. One of the others that I heard that was really funny was on Messy Mondays. It's a YouTube channel. They do homeschool comedy. And one of the ones that made my kids laugh particularly hard was, you might be a homeschooler if you've had a gluten-free snack made with a sugar substitute. Um, so that was one that I find holds a lot of truth also. Okay, so that's the funny side. Let's talk about 5 signs that you might be destined to homeschool. If you are looking for or can benefit from a flexible schedule, homeschooling may be the best educational option for you. Now, that flexibility can be for a whole host of reasons. Maybe you have a child who is getting different occupational or speech therapies, or you have a child who has a particular talent that you're cultivating and they're doing, a lot of practice or classes. Maybe you have a different work schedule, or your significant other is working nights, and it would mean that if you had a flexible schedule and the kids weren't in school, that you would have increased family time. Maybe you want flexibility in your schedule to be able to follow your child's interest. And if they do love, let's say, science, to be able to do additional science activities, take additional science classes, go to additional science field trips, and be able to have the flexibility in your schedule for all of those things. Flexibility is a big reason, a big contributing reason that a lot of people choose to homeschool. Uh, and why did you choose to homeschool is a question that I've gotten a lot over the years. And I have to say that I've never been able to choose just a single reason. Amanda, how about you?
I don't know that I have a single, just set reason either. There's so many reasons
There
that
really
kind of led me this way, and I would not go back at this point. I do enjoy it.
Yeah,
Um,
there really are. And Amanda was in the classroom. Amanda, what was the class that you taught?
I
Or that
taught high school agriculture. So we had things from agri-science to animal science, plant science. We had a lot of different areas that I taught. And for several years, my husband and I actually taught school together, which was great because we worked right next door. But once we started having kids, we just, this kind of became the path that was opening up. And he still continues to teach public school, but I became a stay-at-home mom, and I joke that there is no way you could get me back into a classroom.
That's great. So definitely a passion for public education. Um, and a lot of people, I think, mistakenly perceive the choice of homeschooling as opposition or a criticism of public education, and that it's like a commentary on other people's choices. But it really is just, you know, just as if you were going to send your child to a private school, you're just looking at what's going to be the best fit for your family, your child, and making that decision without some social commentary on other people's educational choices.
Hmm.
And for that, sometimes as a homeschooler, when you let someone know you're homeschooling, the immediate reaction can sometimes be like, oh, they start giving you the reasons that they don't homeschool, which I've always found funny. Like, my homeschooling does not convey a judgment that I think you should be doing it
Hmm.
too, because I've seen when it comes up in conversation that a friend has their child in a private school, like no one in the group starts explaining why they don't send their kids to a private school. But flexibility is one of the reasons that homeschooling is a great option for people. So if you are looking uh, for more flexibility in your schedule, if you find that, okay, your child is coming home from a full day of his school and you've got 4 hours of homework to work on with them, and that it really is just taking so much of your time, you can definitely homeschool, because that 4 hours that you're spending with them at night, that can actually be your homeschool day. The homeschool day takes a lot less time than uh, what the school day takes, because during the course of a school day, they're doing a lot of things in addition to the education portion of it. Okay. Uh, so the second sign that homeschooling may be for you is if you would like additional freedom. That kind of goes along with that flexibility. But with that flexibility comes that additional freedom. You get to select uh, the literature that you would love your child to be able to read and examine. You get to pick the courses. Your child gets to have input on that, which is huge. And in Montessori, a phrase that you hear a lot of is follow the child. And in a public school or private school environment, there tends to not be a lot of opportunity for follow the child, for that interest led learning to happen. And so with that freedom of homeschooling, it's going to help your child and your family to blossom. It also gives you freedom so that if you do want to take a month or a year, I'm always inspired by the homeschoolers who get in their RVs and go on these extended tours of their state or the country. We've at Schiller Learning, we support the curriculum. We've got math and language arts resources, pre-K to eighth grade. And so, over the years, we've gotten to have a lot of conversations with different families. And so I've talked to families who have sold their homes and moved into their RV and are touring the country, having an amazing experience that could only happen through homeschooling, or getting on a sailboat and sailing around the world, and homeschooling as they are literally learning about everything
Hmm.
in person, geography wise, and uh, going around the world. So if you would like more freedom in what you would like to study, what you would like to discuss, what you'd like to be able to do with your time as a family, homeschooling may be for you. Uh, Healthier socialization is another reason that many people choose to homeschool. This, and so far, the three reasons that we've talked about, these are all things that went into my own decision back before we even had our first kid. Once I was not homeschooled. I had done a combination of private school and then public school. The first time I heard about homeschooling, I was so intrigued. I didn't even have kids yet, but I knew that that was something that I was going to want to explore. And then by time I was, expecting with the first, I knew that this was going to be the way that we wanted to go. And socialization. So, what about socialization is the big question homeschoolers get. Socialization, it tends to be the biggest concern that has people a little hesitant about giving homeschooling a try. The other thing about homeschooling is that you can just try it. If you decide to homeschool, that doesn't mean you can never put your kids back in school. It's okay to give it a try for a year to determine whether or not this really is for you and your family, or if, oh, it was a nice idea, but it turns out to not be the best fit, and your kids can go back into school, or maybe if you select a different school than what they had been in. It's okay to try it.
And
And
Antoinette, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, I used to remember feeling uncomfortable and shy, talking to new people and adults and things. And my kids will talk to anyone that will stop and talk to them for just a minute. So I feel like they're so much farther along than I was at that age. I mean, I remember being very shy and reserved around adults, and they are not at all. They love talking to people. So they're very socialized, I feel like.
likewise, and studies actually show that kids who are homeschooled have better social skills than their traditionally schooled peers. And
Hmm.
because they are interacting with the world at large, they're not in an artificial social environment where it's a little bit of Lord of the Flies kind of thing. Uh, they're interacting with adults. They're having meaningful socialization as opposed to that artificial socialization that's happening in schools. And all day long in school, kids are told, you're not here to socialize.
Yes.
um, and then which is always a funny thing when people point out, what about socialization? Wait a second, didn't we grow up in school being told you're not here to socialize? Um,
Yes, I actually have a friend who was telling me just a few days ago that her child keeps getting in trouble at school because she's a little social butterfly that wants to talk all the time.
right.
And she
And
keeps being told that she's got to be quiet.
if you are concerned about socialization because you have an only child and they wouldn't be, have their siblings as peers, there are a lot of opportunities. There are homeschool co-ops, homeschool classes. There are homeschool classes for just about every single interest out there. I've seen them for swimming, gym, yoga, science, speech classes, contortionist classes, fencing classes. Uh, there are different things that come up. You'll see something on beekeeping or really specialized interest. So there will be a lot of opportunities. Look into your local homeschool community. There are tons of Facebook groups out there. There, uh, there will be generally two different kinds. One is a group which has online interaction. Those are wonderful, but I do recommend uh, having at least one group that you connect with that is getting in person locally. Amanda, do you find that that's a big difference?
Yes. Love the online stuff and being able to connect with people that way. But I definitely, as a homeschool mom, love having something in person that the kids and I can go to and get everybody out of the house. I think it's better for everybody to get out at least once or twice a week. It doesn't have to be a big trip, but something.
Yeah, and that is what my top tip that I give to new homeschool parents is to make those local connections so that you can see in person and have those conversations with a mom or dad. It's not always moms. We have had homeschool dads in our groups, but those people that you can talk to in person, someone who's doing what you're doing. Also, those local groups are going to be great resources for when you're new to homeschooling, helping you out with what the law is in your state. And then sometimes the local school districts have some nuances as far as how they administer the law. And it can be helpful to have that. Now, another reason that homeschooling may be for you is if you have either a struggling or an advanced learner. Uh, if you have either one or a combination of those, because of course you can have, you know, uh, the child with special needs who's also advanced academically in some areas. So, um, there is certainly a wide spectrum, but struggling or advanced, that means uh, the typical course of study is not going to really be helping them to maximize their potential. And we really want to have every child have the opportunity to fulfill their potential. Homeschooling is going to be a great way for doing that. Sometimes families with kids with special needs um, are hesitant to homeschool because of the supports that they're getting through the school system. Now, that varies from state to state, but there are a lot of resources for both struggling as well as advanced learners who are homeschooling. So it can actually not only um, not be a hindrance for your child, but it can be an advantage. So if you've got a struggling or advanced learner, homeschooling might be a great option for you. And then another reason that people choose to homeschool, this may have been one of my top many, many reasons for homeschooling, and that is building stronger family relationships. And I have found that it absolutely has accomplished that. You spend time with your kids in homeschooling that you wouldn't do otherwise. You will have moments that would never have happened were you not homeschooling. You're making lifetime memories. There will still be days when you see the school bus go by and you think, about running out and throwing yourself in front of it and begging them to take your kids, but that will pass in just a couple of minutes or a day. And overall, it's going to be this amazing experience that will help you all to grow, not just academically, but socially and emotionally, and build those really strong family relationships. Amanda, what are your thoughts on the family relationships with homeschooling?
Yes, I feel like my kids are so much closer to each other than I feel like I was to my siblings growing up, because when you're in school you have a lot of different friends, and then you don't build those friendships with your siblings at home. You're not around them as much. And so I feel like my kids have really built a lot stronger family relationship, and I absolutely love that and hope that they continue that. Your kids are older. Is that the true in
That
your family?
yeah, that's an excellent point about the sibling relationships, not just the parent-child relationships. And that, as in a traditional school environment, they're with their aged peers and tend to develop those activities. And there still will be things that are based around age, but the homeschooling definitely helps the kids to sustain those close relationships that they have when they're really young before they start school. And then, too, if you have kids of varying ages, like let's see, what is there, 10, 12, almost 12 years of age difference between let's be my oldest and youngest. And homeschooling definitely helped them to bond in a way that they may not have um, had they not been homeschooled. And I'm the ninth of 10 kids. And I can say that during those school years, it definitely was a hindrance to, the development of some of those bonds. And that happened either, before you started school or once you were finished with school. So yeah, the building stronger family relationships is a definite plus to homeschooling. And if that's something that you would like to have in your family, homeschooling may be for you. Okay, so that is going to, wrap up the things that may have you realizing that homeschooling is a great option for you. Did anyone have any questions or want to make any comments on any of those things or homeschooling in general? Tomorrow's session is, I'm gonna throw that back up there. Tomorrow's session, by the way, is going to be through our Facebook page. So be sure to like that. It's going to be on homeschooling solo. So if you are a single parent, then this is going to talk about how that homeschool journey can work for you if you are not that typical two parent family. And then Thursday night, also going to be on social media, is a session on homeschool planning. We have some free resources for you for that. And then next week, we are going to talk about homeschool math. And chat just disappeared for me. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us for today. Keep an eye out for the updates on the schedule. There will be some new workshops being added. And we will also, oh, by the way, if you are looking for homeschool resources, the Schiller Learning Convention pricing is up on the website. So you have access to convention pricing, the lowest price of the year on both math as well as language arts resources. If you have any questions, just give a call. The phone number is right on the homepage, and we are happy to help, not just with language arts and math, but on anything homeschool related.